Welcome back. I just want to give a quick reminder that if you want the political astrology and predictions on the US election in 2024, please go to my Patreon channel. I have a 10-part series that I will continue to post on Patreon, and also I'm doing live Zoom meetings on Patreon where you can ask any questions you want. That's only $5 a month. So if you want that, please go to Patreon and sign up. Also, I am still offering a workshop in how to predict election outcomes. It's 15 weeks for $150. We're going to be starting soon, so I hope you can join us, and you can find more information about that in the link below this video. Finally, if you want a private reading, you can always find a link below and order a reading. Other than that, today I'm going to be talking about this upcoming full moon in Leo and Aquarius. Now, the reason why I am doing this early is because, first of all, we're already in the full moon window. So the closer we move toward the full moon being exact, the more the power of it increases. So anytime between now and the full moon, we could actually see the manifestation of this full moon energy. It will become more and more intense as we get closer and closer to the day of the actual full moon, which is on August 19th. Of course, the full moon energy also extends beyond that moment when it's exact, and it will continue to manifest usually for only about 4 days after the full moon is exact. So anytime within that window, we could potentially see the events manifesting this energy. This is a rather unusual and extraordinary full moon. That's why I wanted to start early, because you really need to understand what's coming with this full moon and be prepared for it as much as possible. So let me explain what this is about. We'll start with the sun at 27 degrees of Leo, opposite the full moon at 27 degrees of Aquarius. That's what makes it a full moon. What's so unusual about this particular full moon is that it's exactly square to Uranus at 27 degrees of Taurus. Uranus is actually the ruler of this full moon in Aquarius. So the fact that there's this exact square to the ruler of this full moon is pretty intense. And what that means is that there will be some kind of shakeup or massive disruption or something like a breakdown, but it can also lead to a breakthrough. So I want to be very clear about that. Now, while this full moon may be a bit shocking, even disturbing, and it kind of throws things into the air and throws a wrench into the wheel and all kinds of disruption and change and breakdowns and snafus and kerfuffles and all that kind of stuff. And those things can be very uncomfortable. They can be disturbing. Most people like to know what's coming. And even if they know that something challenging is coming, at least they know what it is. When it comes to Uranus, Uranus rules the unpredictable. It will be something that you never expected, and it will come out of the blue, and it sometimes feels like it can hit you like a sledgehammer or a scorpion sting, even though we don't actually have anything in Scorpio, but that can be what it feels like because it can have a sting to it, and you're not expecting it. So that's the unpleasant side of this full moon square to Uranus and the full moon ruled by Uranus. Then we go further to say that Uranus, the ruler of this full moon, is also ruled by Venus because Uranus is in Taurus. And Venus is not doing so well at the time of this full moon because she's in her detriment in Virgo. It's not a place where she functions well. And she's opposite Saturn at this time. So she is not in a very good mood. Not in the kind of mood that Venus likes to be in, if you know what I mean. Venus, is usually a lover of pleasure and happiness and all things good and gentle and kind and loving and luxury. She likes the good things in life, and she likes to bring that into life and attract that into our lives. But in Virgo, she's kind of nitpicky. And when she's opposite Saturn in Virgo, so she's in Virgo, Saturn is actually in Pisces, but when she's opposite Saturn and she's in Virgo, she's a crabby old maid. And she's not doing such a good job of bringing all the gentle, soft, luxurious, and pleasurable things into life. Instead, she's sort of asking, what's wrong with this picture? I don't like this. Something needs to change. And along comes Uranus that will tell us what needs to change. Uranus is going to show us where the weak link is, and it's going to show us where the breakdown is, okay? And it will show us in no uncertain terms. We will know very clearly what's wrong with this picture, and we'll feel the motivation to make the change because it's a square, and square puts on pressure like a pressure cooker. It's like something's got to change here. Something's got to give. So then when we look at Venus in Virgo, then we discover Venus is ruled by Mercury, because Mercury rules Virgo, where Venus is at the time of this full moon. And guess what? Mercury's retrograde. Oh my gosh. And not only is Mercury retrograde, it's conjunct the sun at the time of the full moon. So it's right in the mix. And basically what it's saying is we need to go back and figure out how things need to be redone. As you can imagine, all of this sounds pretty difficult. However, I will say that there is an opportunity for some transformation. But there's one more fly in the soup that I need to mention, which is the fact that Mars conjoins Jupiter in Gemini at the time of this full moon square Uranus, with Mercury retrograde and Venus in her detriment opposite Saturn. So what that tells us is that people might be in a somewhat crabby mood, and they will be communicating, that's Gemini, in a Mars-like fashion, which means war talk in a sense. Not being very nice, let's put it that way. And when it's conjunct Jupiter, that just makes it more intense, gives it more explosive energy, and also the righteousness of Jupiter. So people are just like not being very nice right now. And that's not going to be a lot of fun to deal with, especially with Mercury retrograde, which also rules Gemini. I think a lot of people are going to end up saying things that they'll regret. It'll just explode out of their mouths. And a lot of us are going to end up being shocked by that. Either shocked by the things that we've said and done, or shocked by the things that other people have said and done. And so that's why I want to give you plenty of warning leading up to this full moon. But I also want to tell you that there's always a bright side to everything. And the purpose of this is to catapult us out of a situation that has not been in alignment with our authentic self. And it's like, this is the final straw. It shows us where the weak link is, and it shows us where something needs to change. And we're going to feel motivated to bring about that change. But the question is, will we do it in a way that leads to a breakthrough or to a breakdown? Now, we'll probably see some kind of breakdown regardless, because that's just the nature of this chart and this full moon and these alignments. But it has a lot to do with a person's evolution. So when someone is not very evolved for whatever reason, maybe they haven't, lived very long, they haven't had time to work through their wounds and do their inner work and so on and so forth, or they just haven't made an effort to do their inner work. Either way, if they're not very evolved, then they will most likely experience the more negative side of these alignments and the breakdowns, the disruptions, the kerfluffles, the regret, saying and doing things you might later regret. It's just, it could get ugly. Let's just put it that way. However, if you have done a lot of inner work and you are more evolved, then you have a better chance of transforming this energy to lead to a breakthrough. Okay. And that's what I'm hoping for all of us, that we can use this powerful energy for a breakthrough. And so, what that can look like is, for example, if you are dealing with someone who is not very nice, then that's why we experience this Venus opposite Saturn, because basically it's showing someone who is in a position of authority that is restrictive. Okay. They're not given the goods. And that's what we feel when Venus is opposite Saturn. We don't get the goods. We don't get the goodies. Okay. Because Saturn is restrictive. So it's like someone in a position of authority is turning things sour because they're shutting down and closing things off and restricting things, restricting the goodies that we would normally get from Venus. And so that's what puts us in a bad mood. But it's also what motivates us to want to bring about some change. And so that change could be related to any kinds of things. Ultimately, it's related to the level of consciousness. I love that quote by Einstein where he says, "A problem cannot be solved from the level of consciousness that created it," which is interesting because if you look at that and you sort of reverse engineer it, what it says is every single problem has a solution, and that solution is raising the level of consciousness. If you think about it, you'll see that that is true. And that's true of this particular full moon. We need to raise our level of consciousness in order to solve the problem, whatever problem this is making evident, okay? So it could have something to do with relationships or money or your housing situation, the way people are treating you, or maybe you need to look at something in yourself, you know, and see if you can work on that. And with the Mercury retrograde, it's taking us back to re-examine something from our past, something deep inside that either we left it behind and we need to bring it back, or we didn't quite do things correctly in the first place and we need to redo it. We need to rethink it. We need to revise it. And that's all fine and good. I'm actually really in favor of this Mercury retrograde. Now, normally people always think Mercury retrograde is unfavorable. And I suppose we could say, yeah, that's probably true most of the time, that Mercury retrograde can be really difficult. But for some reason, I just feel really positive about this Mercury retrograde. It may bring things back from the past to be reworked and revised and rethought about and researched and all that. But I have a feeling that what it's also taking us back to is our true authentic self. You know, it's like something we left behind because the world taught us that we're supposed to feel crabby, you know, like this Venus opposite Saturn. And yet something about these alignments say, wait a minute, yes, it's true that sometimes things can get difficult. Sometimes there are authority figures that slam on the brakes and put up the walls and create all these obstacles to letting us have the goodies. Sometimes that's true. And yet, if you could really work with this energy and evolve your consciousness, I truly, truly believe there is potential here for an incredible breakthrough. And so I really want you to meditate on the meaning of this full moon, because if you do that, I think you have time to get yourself into a position in which when these events unfold, and I'm talking about that authority that puts on the brakes, you know, if it's most likely going to be a person or an organization, an institution, something external to you, like a person or an institution that's slamming down the brakes, slamming the doors, slamming on the brakes, putting up restrictions, limitations. And like I said, that doesn't feel good, especially with Venus and Virgo opposite Saturn. And yet it's like it's showing us where we need to change. It's showing us where our lives need to change and transform. And if we could see that clearly and not place blame external to us and just say, hey, the way I create my reality is by taking responsibility 100%. That's how I empower myself, is by taking responsibility 100%. Then I have the power to transform my reality. We create our reality by how we show up to what is. And that's where your power lies. So if you can transform yourself, you can transform the situation. And you have time to meditate on this and get prepared for it so that you can bring about that transformation and that breakthrough. Okay. So there's actually a lot of potential embedded in these alignments. And I'm hoping that we can all use them for our own personal breakthroughs. All right. So I'm going to leave it at that. And I have more to say about the kinds of things I'm going to be doing on this channel. And again, if you want to become a patron, click the link below. If you want to join the workshop, click the link below. And if you want a reading, click the link below. And I will see you again soon. Hello, this is Yvonne Davis, astrologer and author of The Power of Manifestation and In the Magic Flow. Here on Under the Stars, I focus on general astrology like new moons and full moons, horoscopes, and electional astrology. During half the year, I live in a cottage surrounded by a forest in the Colorado Rocky Mountains, where I write, commune with nature, and study the stars. Electional astrology is all about electing the best timing to take action to achieve your best outcomes. In this game of life, knowing when it's time to hold and when it's time to fold and when to go full steam ahead can make all the difference in achieving your goals and dreams to create a life you love. If you're interested in mundane astrology, including political predictions, please click the link in the description box below to become a patron for exclusive ad-free content and live Zoom meetings. Here on Under the Stars, we'll explore the most important astrological alignments, including new moons and full moons, electional astrology so you can take action to create the best outcomes in your life, and dive deep into the transit of Pluto in Aquarius, which will last for 20 years, an entire generation that will radically transform our lives. We'll explore all things related to Pluto in Aquarius, including the new power dynamics emerging in our world, personal power, evolution of consciousness, the future of humanity, new technologies such as artificial intelligence, virtual reality, augmented reality, quantum computing, digital currencies, holographics, and new forms of energy and food production. We'll talk about climate change and the choices humanity will make to adapt. We'll also explore topics like crop circles, aliens, UFOs, and disclosure. If you thought the past few years and the congressional hearings were wild, wait till you see what's coming. So I hope you'll stick around for this new content or become a patron. If the future of humanity intrigues you, I'm sure you'll find something here to inspire and entertain you. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, or check out my Patreon for more content and live Zoom meetings. To order a 1-hour live astrology reading, click on the link in the description box below. As an electional astrologer, I'm here to help you find the best timing for your best life.